Hello and welcome. This is Pepin from Pepin Reacts, and today we have our friend, my friend, your friend, our friend, Meader. Meader, how you doing?
I'm here too.
Yes, he is. And today we have another exciting, fantastic episode of a show we like to call Breaking Bad. Last episode, so much happened. So much happened. Yep. Now, let's get to the comments.
All right, here's a comment from JohnBoy186. Love that poster, man. Where'd you get it?
Well, I think I got it on like eBay. It was like a really good deal, and I just couldn't pass it up. I haven't used eBay before. I heard it was a great product, so I bought it, and then it was great. So that's where I got it.
And this one from the nerd 6969. It says, "Yay."
I agree. Yay. And actually, we've got one more. It's from Bob the Builder. He actually commented on the last one, I think, right? Or maybe this one before that. He says, I think my girlfriend is going to break up with me. What should have spelt wrong, I do? Huh. Meader?
Now's your big chance, man. You gotta break bad. Take a page out of Walter White's book, and or Jesse's. Milfs.
Are you saying he should sell meth?
I would never say that legally.
Okay. Well, if he were to sell meth, I might be okay with that because it's like you got to be an entrepreneur in this modern world. I mean, capitalism is what we are, and you have to inhibit that by selling meth. So go ahead, do it. It's called ice for a reason. It's cool, and just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Like he would want.
Okay, that was episode 522.6 of Breaking Bad. This episode, I, I said this many. Okay, I said this many times throughout the reaction, and I may have even brought it up before the reaction. I don't know, but this is the episode that made me stop watching Breaking Bad. This episode has two different layers to it, maybe three different layers. Number one, it is very, very well done. Like, everything is top notch on it. Number two, it's a fucking train wreck. Number three, it is fucking painful. Right? I mean, that's what I gotta say right there. Meader, tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the side of the veil where we can see everything, and it makes everything very, very interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah. I really hope the rest of the series isn't like this, because okay, they have had bad stuff on it, right? So there has been, like, how do you say this? There's been parts of the show that are uncomfortable to watch, like where Domingo got killed, right? That was uncomfortable, and it was very well done. But it's kind of been more like a badassery, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of been more like bad stuff, but bad stuff you kind of want to see. Here, this is bad stuff you don't want to see.
Okay, like what?
Okay, so those splooge, or whatever, spooge, and the lady and the neglect kid, that is super painful to watch. And actually, if I think about it, with Tio from what was his name? Tio.
Tuco.
Yeah, Tuco. So it's the same sort of idea there, where Tio was very painful to watch because it was a tragedy right there. But, like, it was not the point of everything, but is a real tragedy. And here we have an even bigger tragedy with these two meth heads who are neglecting this kid. They are just terrible people, all in all. And I almost feel like the show got some criticism on the first season or something. Like, people were like, "Oh, this glorifies meth," and stuff like that. And they're like, "Okay, guys, guess what? Fuck you. We're gonna make this episode, and you're gonna think this is not glorifying meth. This is maybe it's not showing meth what it really is, but this is showing an aspect of meth that is just terrific, or okay, terrifying. That's what I meant. Not in a good way."
Yeah. Like, you may want to make a decision now if you want to keep watching, because the show doesn't get nice at any point. Like, there's never a, like, oh, this is suddenly a happy, cheery show. That's not this show.
Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with not having happy cheeriness, right? I think it's more the dirtiness that kind of threw me off. This like because the show has been kind of clean. Okay, so I think the dirtiest scene up to this point was the scene where they had to clean up the mess of the liquefied bodies, right? And that's messy, but that's kind of abstract here. Like, that's one thing. Show me a kid that has dried up boogers in this super old, dirty clothes, dust on his face, and an apartment or house that has been cleaned about like 20 years. That I don't know. That's just gross to look at. And maybe that's what makes me more uncomfortable with this episode than anything else. But I don't know if I'm being irrational in my reaction to this. But I can deal with, like, the more psychological aspects much better than these neglect, dirty things. I'm being crazy.
There will be. Yeah, it's. So why do you think that's where Jesse's arc took him today? Was that his whole arc was in that house?
Can you frame that a little bit different? Like, are we asking why the creators decided to have an arc in the house? Or,
like, normally we talk about, like, what happened and what it symbolizes and all of that. So what is all of that? What does all of that mean for Jesse and his character, and, like, how his character is progressing, and all of that, because I mean, I can kick it off with the opening shot is him, like playing with a bug, and someone else comes up and just like squishes it like immediately. That's their instinct is you see a like gross little insect and you squish it, and Jesse did not have that instinct. He doesn't squish stuff, and then that is what ends up happening in the long run, right? It's not even him that does it.
I suppose
kind
that's
of foreshadowing in a way.
I suppose that's true. And it kind of also contrasts Jesse a bit with Hank, because Hank's whole philosophy is, what do you see when you see a bug, you squish it, right?
Yeah.
Which that's not my philosophy. I'm more along with Jesse's philosophy. You see a bug and then you put it in the jar and look at it for a little bit, or let it be in its natural environment, or gets trapped inside. Let it outside because you don't want it to die. And he was kind of having a little bit of like a wonder there. And I suppose that's right. Even these people, like, he didn't want that guy to die. I mean, he didn't even really want to kill him. And I just felt like he was just like out of place in this whole situation. Because he had his want. He wanted to get his money, right? And that was his aim. And then he went out to do that. And then halfway through, I almost thought the episode was going to turn into like, okay, I came here for money, but now I'm going to make you good, like better parents by threatening you with this gun. And I think it almost pivoted in that direction, because there was like, he just like, okay, guys, you're going to make me a promise. You're never going to do drugs again. It's just like, he said that like right after seeing something bad with the child. And obviously that was influence, but then he pivoted back to, till I get my money. So I think he was pivoting there too, but I'm kind of thinking, if Jesse is the one that doesn't squish bugs, we have Hank who squishes bugs. Where does Walt fit into that? Is he the bug?
I don't know. I guess it depends whose perspective you're looking from, right? From Hank's perspective, yes. From Jesse's, no.
The something that's interesting about this episode is we have Jesse, who is going in. He broke in kind of awkwardly, and then he's threatening people with guns. He smacked one guy in the head and committed a lot of violence there. When he was doing all of that, I didn't feel bad about that, and I don't know what that says exactly. Is it the fact that kind of violence, at least with Jesse, or maybe with what's acceptable in the show, is normalized? Is it just kind of accepted on like a show-based level? Like, you see people fight in shows and you're just okay with it? Or is it having to do with the people involved and me not caring about those people?
Probably a little bit of both, and I'd probably mix in a little tit for tat there as well. That they had threatened somebody's life with a knife, so maybe, speaking to them in violence isn't really a gross thing when they're the ones who started that dialogue.
I see. So if Jesse was just kind of doing it on his own, just like went to some random people's house and mugged them, that would be a bit more egregious. And actually, you're right, because that'd be out of character for Jesse.
Yeah.
Here, he's just more kind of like fighting back against the power, the banks.
Yeah. Yeah. The poor bank.
So he plans to steal from them. And he has to or not steal, but take back. And he has to work himself up to it, which obviously means he's not ready to do it. But when he started doing it, he was pretty good. He seemed to be playing the role pretty well. Maybe a little bit too aloof with it, but he finds this kid, and the first thing he does is just feel bad for this kid. And tries to make the kid feel better.
Yeah. Which him bonding with kids has kind of been a theme thus far. Covering for his little brother and bonding with his little brother. And then when he was trying to get that guy who used to be in that band with him, let him stay there, he talked to the little kid for a little bit. So that's kind of like a theme of Jesse's so far.
Which is kind of interesting. I'm not entirely sold on that idea, but it is kind of interesting because you think about Walt. Walt is really not good with kids, and Walt's whole thing is about a kid, the baby, who's yet to be born. And then Jessie is kind of good with kids. I mean, I'm sure there's
How
some.
is Walt not good with kids?
We haven't really seen
Teaches
him
at
be
a high
good with
school.
kids.
Teaches at a high school.
Yeah,
Has 2 children.
he's terrible with them.
No, he's not.
Have you seen him?
He talked about murdering somebody with his son this week. That was great.
That was actually great. Okay, I changed my mind. But
that was easy.
well, sometimes they make baseless claims in the moment, and then it's like, yeah, that was kind of baseless. He did talk about murdering kids, so he actually does love kids. It kind of all comes full circle. It's like that time last episode where I convinced you of something, you unconvinced me of something, and then you reconvinced me of convincing myself of that thing.
So we like ended up swapping, and then you also you moved me, I moved you, and then you moved yourself back, and it was like, yeah, that was wild. I think it's really interesting the whole bug thing with him not squashing it at the beginning and then somebody else doing it, and then that's like exactly how it ends too, with somebody literally getting squashed and it's somebody else doing it, and that's just super interesting, like it was foreshadowed, but also it kind of like Jessie didn't actually do anything. Like everything he didn't yield any results. Arguably the only thing he did was call 911 and take the kid out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And feed him a sandwich.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what's up with this kid. Obviously neglected, has some level of speech. I don't know if this is one of those kids that hasn't been out of the house at all. Those do exist. Or maybe out very, very rarely, but it kind of just seemed like they were just fine just being there. And I don't know, like chaos, like it's almost like when you have such an unstable upbringing, the instability is the norm. And the fact that there was all this yelling, screaming, and Jessie putting guns to their heads and everything, it didn't faze him one bit.
I mean, even when he first came out of his room and sat down on the couch, he didn't react to some strange man just being in the house.
Yeah.
At all. Jessie tries to dialogue with him. The only thing he says is, "I'm hungry."
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's really interesting too. What was playing on the TV, right, is a guy selling knives. So like something like that being on TV, like it's something violent, sharp, and dangerous, but in like a really blasé way. It's not like even Looney Tunes, right, is violent, but it's violent in a violent way. This is violent in a very like background way, where it's like the suggestion of violence, and that's all he has for entertainment. For like that's is what he normally watches. Is kind of what I'm taking from that is normally he's so used to watching just like violence in a very like abstract way.
And then this is like a further abstraction on top of that. But the marketing of violence.
Oh yeah, that's smart. It's a smart way to talk about it, like selling violence. But I mean, the parents, I imagine, just jump from like their whole life is jumping from hit to hit. Like they don't not in between is just them finding their next score. Like it has nothing to do with anything other than that.
Yeah. What this episode struck me with is there's an idea that I heard that seems to be accurate, which is like a lot of times you have the feeling first, and then if you reject that feeling or don't want to experience it, you will rationalize that feeling away. And this is what those junkies were doing like constantly. And Jessie does it a lot too. but like she gets questioned about her parenting, and then she starts going off about how she's a great parent and blah blah blah. Like they get caught on the shit, and they just start going off on these crazy like lie-based tangent type things, and it's really interesting seeing the show, because you have to have like I'm not gonna say you have to have a good writing process for that, but it made the characters kind of feel alive, because you can see the defenses just kind of playing and kind of still having to defend their ego, despite their ego should being not existent, you'd say. Like, I don't know how to put this, but because I don't want to put down people, but if you're in that kind of state, you're not doing well. That's not good. You're not doing good at life. If you're in that kind of house with that kid, living hit to hit and arguing, and the husband, or I don't know if it's a husband or not, but he killed somebody to steal the ATM, which is pretty messed too. So I don't know. Those people just throw me off. Usually I'm a little bit more focused with discussing this, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think we pretty much touched on all of this.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the bug gets squashed and he walks away with the money, like what he came there for in the first place, despite the fact that he didn't actually do it. So that's all super interesting.
He tried to stop the girl. Let's talk about the girl for just 1 second, because she, without really a thought, she crushed his head, and then she didn't have any remorse right there.
She was high on heroin.
I thought she had come down at that point.
What? No, she had just said she was so fucked up on heroin she needed crystal to balance herself out.
Oh, okay.
She was so low because heroin's gonna take you low and the crystal will take you high. I see. And he said you took too much, so it could even mean she was overdosing.
Okay. See,
she went to sleep.
This is what I was confused about that, because like she's cracked up and she's going to sleep. How does that make sense? Like I didn't really understand that part, but now it makes sense, because she was high in heroin and she was trying to get crystal to bring herself up.
Yeah.
Okay. So she did it without a thought. So I wonder if she's gonna feel bad after. But it's interesting that Jessie was like, "No, wait, don't." And I don't know what that is, because it's one of two things, maybe one of three things. Either he just has a bit of humanity in him, right, and he doesn't want to see something bad happen, right? And despite putting guns in these people's heads, he didn't actually want to see them die. Could be number two, where he is worrying about the kid, and even though these are the worst parents ever, he still kind of sees the bad in it, right? Don't kill him, because he's got a father, or he has very little right now. Probably better just for this kid to be taken away, to be honest, but he still didn't want that to happen to anybody regardless. And this is a third option that I forgot myself, but I want to hear what your thoughts are.
I think it is just number one.
Number one.
The kid almost seemed like an afterthought, based off of him like about to leave, and then goes back to get the kid.
So he wasn't even really considering that. Okay.
I don't think when he jumped up in that moment to try and stop the guy from dying, that was his rationale. I think he saw somebody about to die, and his natural instinct is to try and prevent death.
So going from Jessie to Walt.
Yep.
So the Walt storyline was, I'm going to say, a little bit more complex. There was a lot of nuance to it all.
Yeah, it was all social interaction.
And most of it was like there was words, but trying to interpret the faces, I think, was the big thing about this. The 20-foot plot, or 2,000-foot plot, is that Walt goes back to school, is losing control. He loses control of the narratives. There's like two main ones: the narrative about himself, and also the narrative about him and
Money.
Elliot. and he. Can
Yeah,
you?
let's talk about the school, because like I think that's a really quick touchstone myself, but you might have more to add to it than I'm thinking. It seemed like pretty standard stuff. He seemed to be back in a really good groove. He seemed happy to be back at school, and the principal was like, "Hey, remember, these are teenagers," and
Mhm.
then teenagers were teenagers. And but Walt's reaction was to like show some of that uh vengeful violence to his son, and they kind of bonded over that.
Yeah. Yeah. Though it seemed more like a duplicitous bonding because Walt had his own sense of bonding with that, right? Because Walt was always okay. This is how I felt like it was. Like for Walt Jr., it was like bonding with your dad over a bad joke, right? It's like, haha, yeah, they do suck. For Walt, it was almost like like duplicitously getting like dipping his toes into some sort of sense of like evil, right? Um,
Hmm.
like, hey, I want to share with you this messed up part of me. I want to see if you have that messed up part. And of course, Walt understands that there's some greater subtext that Walt Jr. is engaging in too. But I think it was a bit more sharing of darkness.
Mm.
That's kind of the impression I got. And when Walt was teaching, like maybe this is me being crazy, but I feel like there was also the implication of aggression with the teaching too, because he wasn't just like talking like he normally does, but there was also like that edge to his voice. Like Walt has like a couple different voices. He's got like his "Hey, how do you?" like his good neighbor voice, and then he's got his Heisenberg voice, and this was like more along the Heisenberg voice, which has that sharp edge to it. It's like got that bassy sort of like I don't know, flatness, where it's just like I can't even do it, but like and he had that with the teaching, and the students seem engaged. I got engaged in that too because it was super interesting what he was talking about, and obviously he felt slighted by the whole thing with gray matter, which I don't understand. I don't know if there's gonna be more context to that because there's a lot in that discussion with Elliot, and maybe if I miss something, you can kind of indulge me into it. But it seemed like he was doing all right until he realized he lost control.
Hmm.
He lost
Yeah,
control.
I took it less as like violent and more as passionate.
Mhm.
Like he was actually liking what he was talking about, and then when he realized he was like kind of, maybe it was steering towards violent, but I think it might have been a little less violent and a little more like scorned, as
Mhm.
he brought it to like, and what did they do to repay him? They gave him a $10 GE bond, and then like that is him kind of mirroring how he really feels about the gray matter situation.
Mhm.
So like I think it was him kind of being caught off guard, that he was like feeling like he suddenly felt all those emotions
Mhm. Hmm.
and didn't know how to react to that in front of a bunch of kids and the principal.
Hmm. That's true. Yeah, and I wouldn't say that was at all aggressive there. Definitely, what you said is like annoyed might be the word, but whatever word you use, like just
Mhm.
kind of like uptight, like God, like he started getting
Yeah.
mad. But I would say before that, maybe it's not aggression. This is where things are confusing because number one, aggression and love are kind of inextricably linked. Kind of same with
Mhm.
passion. Like it's kind of like the system that gets you to kind of move forward and kind of start doing stuff. And he has that there. And then where he lost the edge was where he lost control. I guess because he was kind of the person in that story, right? Kind of doing this crazy stuff. And then he lost control of the company or the product or wherever it was. And then he just gets like this little scratch ticket essentially. And that's where he lost his edge. And that's where it all went downhill. And it carried over into an
Mhm.
interaction with Carmen because Carmen's just like talking to him. And there's like this subtle subtext that's not quite lining up. And he realizes he's not controlling this situation with Carmen. And he doesn't understand why. The
I took that more less as he wasn't controlling it, and more that she was reaching out to him like feeling bad and kind of with pity. And that's how he was taking that conversation, was like, oh, I'm being pitied right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most offensive thing that Walt can imagine, is somebody like feeling bad for him.
Mm-hmm. True. I feel like this is me stretching here, but I feel like his offense to pity is also linked to his offense to lack of control, or because it gives him he has no play in that social interaction now. He does not know how to deal with it, and he doesn't want it. He wants to be in control of himself. And when you have someone pitying yourself and kind of giving you pittance, like you're kind of on the back foot, and he does not like that. But you have a good point though, because there's been a lot of points about him and pride.
Yeah, I might take it a step even back or above pity it to pride. And I think that's really where Walt's biggest downfall comes in there.
Yeah.
Is anything that's insulting to his pride is like murderable offense.
And then he goes out, he sees this flyer on his dashboard or car, and you thought it was kind of funny, which it was.
I thought it was very funny.
Walt Jr., not too impressed, but he kind of seemed to know that was going on. Yeah. I mean, how can he not? And Walt is just, he's furious. Like, okay, furious isn't a word. He's murderous. Like,
is he?
Yeah.
Is he though?
Yeah, he got the the vibe I got from him is the same vibe I got when he told off Tuco.
Interesting.
There was like the edge of like, you fucking son of a bitch.
Oh, I didn't get that at all. I got more just like casual annoyance. Like swatting a fly.
It's possible I'm reading far too much into it.
It's possible I'm not reading enough into it.
to back up my point a little bit more, as we already discussed in the next scene, he's talking about like essentially murdering that kid, putting him under the stand with I forget what he said, but scorpions. That's what Mason said, or Tyler, or Greg, whatever his name is.
It's Walt Jr., but Flynn.
Okay, Flynn.
And it was fire ants.
Fire ants. Okay, there we go. But that, I think, was more an expression of the murder's intent I was claiming to be there in the previous scene.
That seemed tongue-in-cheek, though. Like, I think we both know, because we know what Heisenberg's capable of, and, like, the things Walt has done, that there's, like, a subtext of truth to it. I do think it was mostly tongue-in-cheek. Like, when you have a minor thing happen to you, and you playfully escalate it to like 1,000, like, I don't know. My best example would be like soccer. Someone barely touches you and you throw yourself to the ground and like make it a big deal. But it's like, I think he really knows I personally saw it as more of a minor inconvenience for him. And then he used that as a chance to bond with his son and be like, hey, everything's okay. We'll just murder him.
It's the best way to deal with any problem. Either that or cook some meth.
Yeah. A little bit of both.
Just to be clear about my thought on that, I'm not saying, and this is not for you, Meader, I know you know, but I'm not saying that Walt was actually going to murder or was capable of murdering that kid. He wouldn't murder that kid. He wouldn't even confront him, really, probably. Actually, he might a little bit. But, I don't think that was likely to happen at all. I'm just saying that he had that feeling inside of him where he had that urge. It's more expression of that. So from there's this plot line where Gretchen gets back to Skyler or the family, and then blah, blah, blah. She's like, hey, thank you for the money. She's like, the money. And then she gets there. She's all confused. Walt gets there and he's like, the money. Hey, let me see you out. Bye, Gretchen. We need to talk. And then they talk. So the plot line there was definitely very awkward in that, and it's kind of like a knowledge game. I don't think there's too much to say about Skyler knowing than not knowing.
Not until the end.
Yeah,
then there's something to say there.
Yeah, something there. But Gretchen's just confused. She does cover for Walt, but I think that was probably the right thing to do, just to gain information. Because, like, you're not really sure what you're stepping into, and he's got, a kid and a kid on the way, and a wife, and a house, and cancer. So you're not really sure what's going on, so you gotta, like, step back and not throw, like, a dynamite in there while everyone's there, because that could get really confusing.
Yeah.
So she did the right thing and talked to him, but she seemed kind of distant when he kind of went out to the car. And I almost feel like she kind of thought this was a possibility within Walt. Like, he's doing this again. Which might actually be the case, because she had that whole thing with, like, Walt leaving, which we'll discuss that in just a second. But anyway, they go meet up at this cafeteria or place, and they have some food, and they get all sassy with each other. So, can you do your best to explain this conversation to me? Because I picked up about half of it. The rest of it, I feel like went over my head, or I got lost in the facial expressions.
What did you pick up? And I might be able to fill in the gaps a little easier than trying to explain everything from scratch.
Okay, so this is what I picked up. Walt is avoiding discussing anything, kind of like he did with Skyler. And she's like, hey, like, what's going on? It's great you're apologizing, but what's up? And he's like, I already apologized to you. Now, let's move on. And she's like, I gotta know. So they had a back and forth there. And she realizes that something's up with him. And then this whole thing comes up about, like, gray matter, and Walt left gray matter just all of a sudden because the father and Elliot and blah blah blah. I don't know what that plot line, so I'll need some explanation in that. But they had this weird back and forth, and Walt has, like, about 5 different emotions on his face, because he is fucking aggressive here, like utterly. But he's also sad. He's remorseful. And it feels like he has a loss there too. It's like 4 different emotions going on at the same time. Gretchen feels sad. She seems to have a little bit of remorse there, but more confusion. And she's also just trying to like she feels hurt a bit towards the end. This is where Walt kind of comes in with, like, fuck you, right? And I don't think Walt meant that. I think that was Walt's way of kind of, like, getting Gretchen the fuck out of there, because he had nothing else to do, and I think Gretchen was poking at too many things that were painful for Walt. And Gretchen, of course, there felt pain, and I give it to the actress, like, that little sequence where she reacted to that, like, I don't know, you could see every single emotion, and it just got complex.
Yeah, I mean, she said she felt sorry for him, and that's when he said fuck you. Oh, because that triggers Walt's pride, or... And I mean, she had said earlier, like, we offered to pay, and we still offer that, and you turned it down for whatever reason, pride or whatever. Like, she already knew exactly why he did what he did. Then his response is, no, you owe me. You guys built a company on my research. She's like, you walked out. And I don't fully understand the complexity of what happened there. She said, like, you went off with my dad and brothers, and then when I went upstairs to see you, you were packing. So I think there's an implication there that there was some conversation between her family and Walt that she was not privy to, and nobody has ever told her about, that caused Walt to leave. I don't know what that is. Maybe he asked to marry her and her dad said no. Maybe her dad and brothers slighted her in some way. Maybe he saw something he shouldn't have. Like, maybe her and Elliot were doing something and he happened to oversee that, and she doesn't know that he knows something was going on there. Not that there's any implication that something was, other than that they're together now, but I'm just throwing out random ideas based on this is what we know, and it's not much. Other than Walt feels slighted and Gretchen feels slighted. They both feel like the other person is at fault for how things turned out.
Okay. So in that case, I'm not really missing anything. I think where I got thrown off is because there was so much detail in the facial emotions going on that it almost like you saw more of what was going on than was being communicated.
Yeah, no, I think you read emotions better than I did, for sure. I think everything you're saying makes complete sense in hindsight, but I don't register at that speed like you do. I was listening to the words much more than I was to anything else.
Okay. And what did you think of Walt's like aggressive nature in that conversation? Also his like let's say the sadness or like that other, it's like a push-pull a little bit, but what do you say about his emotions there?
He was trying to hurt her to get back at her for what he feels is a slight and a continued slight, and also to remain in control of the situation so that she wouldn't tell Skyler. That's really his big thing, is he wants her to cover the lie. And she has been. And by him not giving her what she wants, which is information, he's worried that she's not, like, she's going to, rescind her lie pretty much and tell the truth. Which is why when he goes home and she's like, Gretchen called, he's like, oh boy, she told her everything. And why Walt's like, just say it. He's saying, tell me what you know, so that he can kind of gauge how he needs to react.
So
I think he was being aggressive to try and control the situation, control her, and he was trying to hurt her.
I guess maybe part of the pain there too was that he felt bad about hurting her. I still feel like he loves her.
They're really awkward.
And Gretchen's emotions there were very interesting too, because I think
I don't like Gretchen.
You don't like Gretchen? Why not?
She feels like fake nice. Like fake. I don't know, almost too nice.
I think she's cerebral nice. She's kind of like me a little bit. Like, she's not nice because she's nice. She's nice because that's how you should act.
I got like, she's like sickeningly sweet nice. Like, Walt said something to that effect, like being like, everything's, you always have this air of, you can't do anything wrong because you're such a good person. Like, it does feel like a very, nothing bad happens to you because you've never been in a situation of need before. So you can it's like you've been afforded the ability to be nice your whole life. You've never had to be mean. Maybe that's what I'm getting at. Maybe that's what Walt means. I'm Walt.
I will still have to see more of Gretchen if we see any more of her, at all. I didn't get that impression. But maybe it's because I can feel like I can relate to Gretchen. Like, I feel like Gretchen's just like super smart and puts on a face because she doesn't know what else to do. And that's her way of just like kind of being in the world. Like, I don't know. But okay, let's get off the topic of Gretchen and let's get on the topic.
So you're Gretchen and I'm Walt.
Yes.
Fuck you. Our emotions, Nate. Our emotions.
Are you feeling that sexual tension right now?
Oh boy. So then him and Skyler. the best episode of the show so far. I mean, your show, not Breaking Bad.
So, Skyler learns some news. Walt's like, "Hey, that's news. Let's hear more." And gain control of the situation. Skyler's devastated. Walt comes up with a lie, and Walt,
he fucking loves that lie.
He is. Maybe he takes some penance in it because it makes Gray Matter look bad, which gives him some more. It's almost like you make up a story and he gets vindication out of that story.
It is the most spiteful lie he has ever told. He is so proud of that lie because it covers his tracks. It explains everything. Why she was acting kind of dodgy, why they may not have said it because they're embarrassed about it. And it also gets back at them in the exact way that Walt himself feels slighted by hitting them in their pride.
I see.
By being like, because he was like, maybe they're prideful. And like when he says that, he's like trying so hard not to smile.
Oh my God. Okay. You read the context of the situation far better than I did. Because I saw it being like Walt like in control, but this was just not, because this was control, but also just he's just.
This was spite.
Yeah, pure spite. Holy shit. You're so right.
And he is loving it. This is psychological violence at like the highest level. Like right below like literal water torture and waterboarding. This is brutal.
Okay.
It's waterboarding, Walter's spiteful lie about money, and then being put in a silent room for 6 days.
Okay. That hierarchy makes sense. So I definitely appreciate it.
We go back to talking about sexual tension.
So, okay. So, we find out that Gretchen came up with a lie too, which is that, hey, we're not going to be giving you money anymore. Yeah. Right? In some way, you could read that like she's covering for Walt. But I think it's more like she thought it out, and that's the only way she can get herself out of this fucking situation. Because if she said came out with the whole like, oh, Walt's not giving the money, now she's involved in that, right? And her whole thing is she got involved in a situation she did not want to be involved in. So she's just removing herself right out of that. Fine, I'll give him what he wants. Fuck him.
And his response is awesome. Fuck you too. I'm gonna smear your name as hard as I can.
That is true.
Now there's a dirty little secret that you're broke, and people are gonna whisper about it, and you're not even gonna fucking know why they're whispering about you.
And that kind of goes to like Walt's whole thing with people whispering about him at school. That's like an extra vindication, like on top of it, like him getting revenge for that. Like it's like,
Then, like you said, Skyler thinks about it for a second. She's like, the car. She sees the one little thing that really doesn't make sense in there. And Walt does what Walt always does, is throw out an idea and then back off of it immediately. Keeping up appearances? Who knows? It's like throws out something for her to grasp onto and then move.
Yep.
It's a really good technique. I use it on the phone sometimes when someone's rambling about something. I will respond to it and then immediately ask a question. That puts me back in control of the conversation, which you need to be able to do when you're a phone operator. And when the situation, that's what Walt wants, is to control again.
I felt like the control he exerted over Skyler there, and just the pure manipulation, to be very unsettling. Like, on one level, it's just kind of messed up because he's doing this to Skyler, his wife, the baby, so on and so forth. Like, there's a lot of messed up features of that, but more just the level of like, just just like he just revels in that, and just having grasp of a human life. He just like he was like in love with that.
It was not only no remorse, but like pride. His ability to formulate a lie that both served his petty purposes and put him back in being able to continue to lie to his family. He covered all his tracks and got a jab at somebody at the same time.
Yeah.
And there was no like him contemplating it or feeling bad. He just like immediately lie right out his mouth and felt great about it. He's like, I know this is a good lie.
It kind of makes me wonder if like passive liars, I'm sure there's other issues with them, but chronic liars, what's the word? But people who just lie constantly, they are addicted to that sort of sense of control because you constantly have to be controlling your lies and what you say and kind of what's going on. And I wonder if that sense of control is just like, it is intoxicating for them, or if it can be.
Yeah.
Huh. I tend not to lie because I get confused with the lies. It's too much to keep up with. It's too difficult. But I could see another Nate where he doesn't have that issue and he just lies constantly just because it's interesting. It keeps him in situation. It's kind of like people will say, like, start talking bad of themselves. Like, oh, you're so great. I could never live up to that. Like, that's just a way of getting people to compliment you and kind of talk about you. Like it's a way to control the situation by making it about you, by not making it about you.
Sometimes.
All the time, Meader. There's not one instance of where that wasn't the case.
Okay.
Oh, God damn it. You're not supposed to go with it.
Oh. No, Nate.
Thank you. I changed my opinion. I agree with you now.
Perfect. Glad that worked.
And so there's a question there. I don't think I've seen beyond this episode. I'm like 98% sure this is where I stopped watching. And I don't know if people will understand that reason. Like, for other people, this might just be another episode. But for me, this is like the worst episode of the bunch. Okay, not the worst in a bad way, but this is like the most brutal episode out of any that we've seen.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited for you to start seeing some French stuff.
It will be very interesting. So let's wrap up here. I don't know how to wrap this episode up, so let's end it in a song.
Okay.
So Meader, what did you do yesterday? Anything fun? Ice cream?
Yeah. Ice cream.
Really?
You scream. We all scream for ice cream.
Was it tasty? That's kind of messed up, isn't it? People screaming for ice cream?
Yeah. Screamed.
It's kind of like that lady screamed in the episode. She's like, ah! Isn't that
Shut the fuck up! Is this what you were imagining for the outro?
No, I don't think I had any idea. My brain's not working fully functional here. So, hey, you guys, guess what? This is the end of the episode. Things you can do to help me and Meader probably is watching this video on repeat 24/7, 6 days a week. 7th day, take off because God did it too. And guess what? Subscribe, notification bell, comments, whatever. Huh?
Ding.
Ding, ding.
Ding. Ding. Ding.
And you guys have a great day, because this is Pepin from Pepin Reacts. I react, we react, we all react, because the lights are on in this room.